This is Love Notes, daily devotions from Holy Trinity Lutheran Church. Grace and peace to you. Eliphaz has stopped his long dissertation, instructing Job on how to deal with his suffering. We have heard him tell him it's his own fault, everything's going to be fine, that this is all for his own good, and many other things that we just don't want to hear in times of suffering. But Job remains strong. Job isn't willing to take this and say, oh, I guess you're right. At the beginning of chapter 6, Job now answers, and the dialogue continues. He says, oh, that my vexation were weighed and all my calamity laid in the balances, for then it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words have been rash. Job is trying to communicate the depth of his suffering. He's also trying to communicate that maybe he spoke a bit rashly about not existing. I don't know what prompts him to answer in this way, other than the fact that Eliphaz has given him unsatisfactory advice. He says, for the arrows of the Almighty are in me, my spirit drinks their poison, the terrors of God are arrayed against me. He acknowledges that somehow God is in this, or God's absence is in this. And from the prose that begins the book, that's what we know has happened. God has stepped back and allowed the accuser, the Satan, to inflict harm and peril on Job's life. I think we should be careful not to think that Job is saying, well, God causes all suffering. And it goes back to Eliphaz. It must be for a purpose. Now, sometimes suffering is just nonsensical. It just happens. It's a world of chaos. And when chaos encroaches into our life, well, it's not pleasant. And in the midst of that unpleasantness, we struggle to understand the meaning and purpose of things. Somehow God has put together a creation where suffering is possible. Maybe it's because without the suffering we wouldn't know joy. I don't know. Maybe it's because God needs us to be free. And in our freedom we will choose poorly. But Job hasn't done that. Job has had everything taken away from him for chaotic reasons that nobody understands. Job says, does the wild ass bray over its grass or the ox low over its fodder? I think the answer, of course, is no. They're busy eating. They are satisfied. He's saying this in contrast to his own situation. If you just give me some food, as it were, some spiritual answers, then I could shut up. But I can't shut up because, well, I haven't been fed yet. I'm not sure if this is aimed at Eliphaz, God, or both. Then he says, can that which is tasteless be eaten without salt? No. Or is there any flavor in the juice of mallows? Mallows are apparently a rather tasteless substance. Starchy substance. Life has no appeal. Life has no pleasantness for Job. So how is he supposed to be satisfied? Eliphaz has called him, to be satisfied, and Job says, I'm not. Oh, that I might have my request, and that God would grant my desire, that it would please God to crush me, that he would let loose his hand and cut me off. It acknowledges a feeling in Job that he's somehow still held on to by God, but that the suffering is also of God. And so he wants God just to let him go so that he can be free of everything that vexes him. This would be my consolation, he says. I would even exult in unrelenting pain, For I have not denied the words of the Holy One. There's our big answer to Eliphaz. I have not denied the word of the Holy One. I'm aware of no sin. God has not confronted me with my guilt. What did I do? Name it. If Eliphaz can't say, well, it's this or that or the next thing, and he doesn't know, then his argument falls apart. What is my strength that I should wait? He's out of strength. What is my end that I should be patient? I don't even know where I'm headed. I don't know what comes after this. How can I go on? Job asks. The suffering exhausts him. Now, this isn't passivity. He doesn't want to just check out. It's active waiting with a focus on deliverance. Answer me, God. Deliver me from this situation because I have not sinned before you. At verse 14, he may be directing this to his friends. Those who withhold kindness from a friend forsake the fear of the Almighty. In other words, you've been pretty quick with answers there, buddy. Why do you withhold the fear of the Almighty in your own life and tell me what to do? My companions are treacherous like a torrent bed, like swollen streams that pass away. You're not helping, he's telling them. Maybe it's a statement that says, though God may seem to desert us, certainly our friends should not. One of the most sorrowful things about entering into a time of great suffering, physical, emotional, or spiritual, is that it really tells us who our friends are, who we can count on. Many will abandon us. Perhaps it's because they don't want to get near that kind of suffering. They don't know the answers themselves. They feel like they have to do more than just sit with us, although that's all that's really required. So they run off. One of the experiences of suffering as it goes on for a while is betrayal and abandonment not just by God, but by those who we thought we could depend upon. This section ends with Job saying, but now be pleased to look at me, for I will not lie to your face. Turn, I pray, let no wrong be done. Turn now, my vindication is at stake. Is there any wrong on my tongue? Cannot my taste discern calamity? He's calling for his friends to notice his suffering, not to speak in general platitudes about suffering, not to give them the ancient koans or the self-help books. I read this book by so-and-so and that helped me. You know what? That book wasn't written to Job. And in calling out to his friends, I think that he calls out to God as well. For who among us has not found the face of God in that one friend who sticks close by in our time of suffering? May we be that kind of friend, short on words, long on presence. Amen.